Here's what I would do differently if I started making games today. For context, I spend every day making games, and I've never had as much fun working on something than I have in the past year making games full time. Scrolling through my YouTube channel, you'll see that I always tried to do different things that interested me. Each project always taught me something new, but looking back, I think I could have learned twice as much in half the time if I just changed a couple things. Firstly, I should have just started. If I could go back, I would honestly just start making something. I wasted so much time thinking about all that could go wrong or saying, okay, I'll start next week, just to get intimidated or distracted and blow another 30 hours playing Dota because it was easier and more familiar. If you're in this position and you're worried because you can't code, go use Blueprints or Bolt. They're visual and free. Or take my word for it, coding isn't the hardest thing in the world, and there are literally 40 million free tutorials and courses. Go jump into one and get cracking. Or maybe you're worried because you can't draw or make digital art. You can make a fun game out of a cube. Ask the folks who made Geometry Dash. The point is, just start. After you finish watching this video, of course. Next, I wish I worked on smaller games. I've lost count of the number of times I've started a giant new project, only to get overwhelmed by how much there was to do and then bail 5% in because I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. Learning how to scope your games takes experience, but if you're making your first game right now, I'm sorry to say this, but it's probably gonna suck. It's way better for your project to suck if you only spent a month on it than for it to suck after having spent an entire year on it. I still kind of struggle with scoping my games. I'm getting better, but if I'd started with smaller projects at the beginning of my game dev journey, I would have had a much better idea of how long it takes to do things. Like how long it's going to take to finish They Come in Waves, the game you see in the background. Please add it to your wishlist. The link is in the description. Next, I wish I did more game jams. A game jam, if you didn't know, is an event where you are given a set amount of time to make a game based on a theme and submit it for other people to play and give you feedback. The reason I wish I did this more was because I was always so nervous to share my games with other people. Like, not just nervous to tell them about it, but nervous to give people the game to actually play. I was scared of their feedback and scared that people would think what I made was shite, when in truth the game dev community is pretty damn fantastic and most people are very supportive of your games and you usually get good constructive feedback. This leads me to the next thing I wish I'd done differently. Spend more time engaging in game dev communities. There is no better feeling than having a conversation with someone that shares your passion for something, and there are a load of great Discord and Reddit communities that are filled with people who just love all aspects of game dev. These days I'm pretty active in a lot of them, but at the start I was just a lurker. I was too scared to contribute to the conversations that were happening, but again, you'll realize pretty quickly that the game dev community is generally pretty great. You do come across some game engine extremists and anti-asset griefers, but for the most part 89% of people are really chill. Interestingly enough, 89% of people who watch my videos also aren't subscribed, so help me out by hitting that sub button. But seriously, talking to people who share in your interests really helps to keep you motivated, and maybe if I'd spent more time in those communities earlier on, I would have been able to do a bit more of my next point: collaborate with other game devs. Okay, this is still something I suck at, but for my next game jam I really want to work in a team of people, because apart from one game jam where I worked on a game with a close family member of mine, I haven't really collaborated on any projects. I think you can learn so much from working in a team. Not to mention, it would be pretty cool if the game still progresses whilst I go take a nap. Next, I wish I spent less time trying to make everything perfect. I have this issue where I want everything in my games to be done the way it should be done in the game dev industry, which is a bit dumb if you think about the fact that most of the stuff I work on will probably never be released for any money. A good example of this is when I 3D model something for a small game. I'm often so concerned about how many triangles are in my model, when really it doesn't freaking matter. Sure, spending time getting better at doing things is good, but I wish I'd spent less time obsessing over details that don't matter in the long run. Another good example of this is software design patterns. Look, if your aim is to practice a software design pattern, then by all means do that. But at the start of my game dev journey, I spent so many hours implementing complex patterns for 10-minute games that would be played by like 5 people. I guess I learned a lot from doing things that way, but I could probably have learned the same thing from watching a few YouTube videos. Whereas learning how to make a fun game is something that really does require a lot of practice. Next, I would have selected my big projects more carefully. Once you get to a point where you're pretty really confident in your ability to make a game, you'll want to start working on bigger projects. I started so many bigger projects that were just out of character. Like, I once started making a city builder game. I don't even really like playing city builder games, except for a short Clash of Clans phase I went through, but I don't even think you can consider that game a city builder. The point is just that I wish I'd spent more time working on games I would actually like to play. I think it makes it much easier to keep working on something if you're actually interested in the final product and it's something you would spend money on to play. And if you're interested in how a mechanic works, which I think is more what I was interested in when building my city builder game, then rather make a really tiny game based entirely on that mechanic. In the city builder example, I could have just made a tiny tower defense game with one level, and I would have learned everything I needed to in a day or two. And on top of that, I would have had a project I could share with some people to actually play. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you found some of it useful, and if you're on the fence about game dev, just do it. Go, start right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.